Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Monday everybody. I hope you had a restful weekend and have a productive week ahead. We begin today's video with the economy. Over the weekend, UK-based Reuters published a good report on the tricky hurdles China has experienced in its long push to loosen Hukou restrictions. Hukou is a system of household registration which officially identifies a person as a permanent resident of an area and includes identifying information such as name, spouses, parents, date of birth, etc. Due to its connection to social programs provided by the government, which assigns benefits based on rural or urban status, the Hukou system is sometimes likened to a form of caste system. While this may be an exaggeration, it is an entrenched form of discrimination with massive disparities in healthcare, education, and social support resources. As such, it has caused social and political friction, and the government has been seeking to reform the system for years now. The Reuters piece writes that the Ministry of Public Security in August called on cities with up to 3 million people to abolish Hukou, and those with 3 to 5 million to significantly relax the issuance. Zhejiang and Jiangsu provinces, relatively wealthy provinces in the east of the country, have announced plans for an almost complete opening to new residents. But 2 people involved in Hukou policy discussions within the central government told Reuters that progress is stalling, making further significant breakthroughs unlikely, especially in China's largest cities. The accounts described previously unreported tensions over Hukou reform, the outlet explains, with Chinese officials acknowledging a strong economic rationale for change, quote, but hesitant to take decisive moves that might disrupt social stability and burden indebted cities with additional costs, end quote. The advisors told the outlet that China's largest cities have limited residential supply and face pollution and congestion issues affecting their ability to absorb more people. Medium-sized and smaller cities have excess housing stock they would gladly offer to new residents, quote, but due to surging debt they lack the funds to expand access to health facilities, elderly care, and education. End quote. This is one of the critical points. Local governments don't have the fiscal resources to expand social benefits, healthcare, pensions, education, etc., to millions of new persons, and existing local urban Hukou holders do not want to see their existing benefits diluted. And this brings us to the next update, fiscal pressure on local governments, a space which we've been following for some time on China Update. Hong Kong-based The South China Morning Post reports last week that, quote, in a rare acknowledgement of the regional financial struggles facing one of China's most dissolute regions, state media has reported on the crushing fiscal pressure resulting from overstaffing. End quote. The report by a current affairs magazine affiliated with state-run Xinhua explored how the continuous expansion of government workers has taken a toll on local-level finances. The report examined the mountainous Wumeng region, which covers more than 24 poor counties in southwest China's Sichuan, Yunnan, and Guizhou provinces. The disclosure, quote, came as Beijing has been scratching its head over how to deal with the level of snowballing debt owed by local authorities, which has forced many of them to cut construction budgets or downsize their general spending. End quote. The South China Morning Post reports that the total wage budget for temporary workers is less than a fourth of what is paid to institutionalized civil servants. However, temporary workers were found to outnumber full-time civil servants in the county by nearly twice as much. The findings showed that 28,806 temporary workers in the county were making an average of 16,100 yuan, approximately $2,200 annually, while the 15,580 civil servants were making an average of 128,300 yuan each, 8 times more. The rapid expansion of temporary workers has weighed heavily on the country's already strained fiscal budget, reports the outlet, as land sales, which account for the lion's share of local government revenue, have been declining amid a real estate slump. The heavily indebted municipalities have been grappling with worsening fiscal conditions. None of this is new, of course, for regular China Update viewers, but this case study does give us an idea of what it looks like on the ground. Many local governments are essentially bankrupt. What is noteworthy here, though, is that a state media-affiliated article is recognizing this fact. The state-run Current Affairs magazine reported that, in one unnamed county, special funds were enough to cover only 16% of the wages of temporary staff, an 84% shortfall, adding that the general public budget revenue fell short of covering wage expenditures for government workers, and that the total wage expenditure for temporary staff exceeded the entire county's total tax revenue. An incredible state of affairs. The implications are clear. This is not sustainable. However, once again, in a system like an economy, one adjustment simply creates trade-offs in other areas. Quote, "It seems that in order to relieve local unemployment, local governments are effectively providing disguised unemployment benefits through part-time employment, but this is causing their debt burdens to balloon. Unfortunately, cutting back will reduce domestic consumption, further weakening domestic demand and forcing local governments to rely more on debt-financed investment for growth, which will also cause debt burdens to balloon. So far, this seems to be a problem mainly in the poorest regions, but it does illustrate how difficult it will be to get debt under control without the redistribution of income needed to shift the economy away from investment and towards consumption." End quote. Next up, we have two more important updates to cover, but first and just quickly, if you're getting some value from today's episode, I have a huge favor to ask. 45% of regular viewers are not subscribed to China Update. Subscribing and hitting the like button is one of the best ways to help this channel grow. If the channel grows, it can be seen by new people, I can put more resources into this, and hopefully make it a greater experience for you all. And for those who want to keep the channel financially sustainable, this channel relies primarily on subscriber support, not corporate sponsorship. Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. With your help, I know I can continue producing these episodes for free, open for all, 6 days a week. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. Next up, Dakota Curry, a non-resident fellow at the US-based Atlantic Council's Global China Hub, has published an excellent report on Beijing's efforts to shape global cyberspace norms through policy, hardware, and software. We observe some of the most salient points of the report by quoting selected excerpts directly. China recognizes that many non-democratic and illiberal developing nations need internet connectivity for economic development. These countries aim to digitize trade, government services, and social interactions. But interconnectivity risks better communication and coordination among political dissidents. China understands this problem and is trying to build global norms that facilitate the provision of its censorship and surveillance tools to other countries. The so-called community with a shared future in cyberspace is based around the idea of cybersecurity. China contends that it is a state's right to protect its political system, determine what content is appropriate within its borders, create its own standards for cybersecurity, and govern access to the infrastructure of the internet. Jointly building a community with a shared future in cyberspace, a white paper from the government of the People's Republic of China, is the continuation of diplomatic efforts to rally the international community around China's concept of cyber sovereignty. By extending the concept of sovereignty to cyberspace, China makes the argument that the state decides the content, operations, and norms of its internet, that each state is entitled to such determinations as a de facto right of its existence, that all states should have equal say in the administration of the global internet, and that it is the role of the state to balance claims of citizens and the international community. But making the world safe for authoritarian governments is only part of China's motivation. As the key provider of censorship-ready internet equipment and surveillance tools, China's concept of cybersecurity offers political security to other illiberal governments. Case studies in this report demonstrate how such technologies may play a role in keeping China's friends in power. The report is called Community Watch, China's Vision for the Future of the Internet, and is well worth a read for anyone interested in this space. Much of this will be built on ideology and the narratives which China tells itself and the world. We end today with the development of so-called philosophy and social sciences with Chinese characteristics. Last week, Gao Xiang, the influential head of the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, penned an article on the theory page of party flagship outlet The People's Daily titled "Accelerate the Fundamental Adherence to Building Philosophy and Social Sciences with Chinese Characteristics." This is the most authoritative piece to date to advocate for the intellectual decoupling from the West and the erection of an ideological alternative to the West, which will carry Beijing's alternative narratives and policies. It is critical that we follow the articulation of this evolving ideology in Beijing. Actions are the fruits of policy, and policy grows in the soil of ideology. We end today by examining a few key parts of the Gao Xiang piece, which we are now quoting excerpts of directly. General Secretary Xi Jinping's important expositions on philosophy and social sciences are an important part of the organically integrated Xi Jinping thought on culture. They guide the acceleration of the construction of philosophy and social sciences with Chinese characteristics, interpreting the Chinese path, understanding Chinese practice, and building Chinese theory, pointing out the direction and providing fundamental guidance. Today, the major changes unseen in a century are accelerating. The development trend of the rise of the East and the decline of the West is increasingly evident, and the contrast between the order we see within China and the chaos in the West is striking. The Western centralism that dominates the international system and international relations concepts built on Western values as the main orientation is unsustainable. Western governance concepts, systems, and models are difficult to adapt to the new international pattern and the trends of our times. Neoliberal theory has been widely questioned since the 2008 international financial crisis. This further highlights the epoch, value, and world significance of theoretical innovation based on Chinese practice and thought. To improve the ability to shape the national image and influence international public opinion, we must enhance our international discourse power. We should strengthen the construction of international communication capabilities and accelerate the construction of Chinese discourse and narrative systems. Tell Chinese stories well, participate widely in world civilization dialogues, and form international discourse power, matching our comprehensive national strength and leading international status. Here ends the direct quote and today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much everybody for watching. Have a good Monday. I wish you a productive week ahead, and I will see you all tomorrow.